Fetterman's been asking. Let Eden do it. Well, mine's a little bit longer, but
We got Gannon here.
The two regulars.
That's supposed to be the same time.
the time for convening has arrived. We'll start this evening's City Council meeting. I would like to call this meeting of the Sandy Springs City Council to order for Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024. Will the City Clerk please make the announcements? Call the roll.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. First, I would like to remind those in attendance, please silence all cell phones and other electronic devices at this time. Individuals who would like to provide a public comment at a City Council meeting are required to complete and submit a public comment card in advance of the meeting. As I call roll, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Rusty Paul.
Present.
Councilmember John Paulson is absent. Councilmember Melody Kelly.
Here.
Councilmember Melissa Mueller.
Here.
Councilmember Jody Rochelle.
Here.
Councilmember Tibby DiGiulio. Councilmember Andy Bauman.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, have we received any public comment cards?
We have not.
All right, we'll close the public comment period.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. DiGiulio.
I move approval of the meeting agenda for Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024.
We have a motion by Mr. DiGiulio. Do I hear a second? Been moved by Mr. DiGiulio, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve the meeting agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on approving the meeting agenda. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The meeting agenda is approved. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mayor Paul.
Ms.
I
Rochelle.
move that we approve the consent agenda for Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024.
We have a motion by Ms. Rochelle. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Ms. Rochelle, seconded by Ms. Mueller, that we approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on approval of the consent agenda. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The consent agenda is approved. Moving to public hearings, will the clerk please read the first item?
This is agenda item number 2024-002, ABL 103916, consideration of an alcoholic beverage license application for M2 Convenience Store LLC, doing business as Texaco Food Mart at 8779 Dunwoody Place, Sandy Springs, Georgia 30350. The applicant is, Kareem Balwani for packaged wine and malt, presented by Chief Financial Officer Tony Carlisle.
Ms. Carlisle.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a new application for retail and packaged wine and malt beverage. M2 Convenience Store, LLC, DBA, Texaco Food Mart, 8779 Dunwoody Place, Sandy Springs, Georgia, 30350. The applicant, Kareem Balwani, has met all requirements, and staff recommends approval for this license.
All right. Have we received any public comment cards?
We have not.
All right, we'll close the public hearing. You've heard the report of the Chief Financial Officer. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul,
Dr. Kelly.
I'm going to move approval of agenda item 2024-002. This is a approval of an alcoholic beverage license application for M2 Convenience Store, LLC, doing business as Texaco Food Mart, 8779 Dunwoody Place, Sandy Springs, Georgia.
You have a motion by Dr. Kelly. Is there a second? Been moved by Dr. Kelly, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve agenda item 2024-002, alcoholic beverage license application for Texaco Food Mart at 8779 Dunwoody Place. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2024-002, the alcoholic beverage license application for Texaco Food Mart at 8779 Dunwoody Place. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2024-003, consideration to approve a contract award to Gresham Smith for the development of the City of Sandy Springs Safety Action Plan as it relates to the Safe Roads and Streets for All project, and to authorize the city manager to execute the contract, presented by Public Works Director Marty Martin.
Mr. Martin.
Mayor and Council, good evening. Tonight, I'd like to present to you the next step along the way for a safety action plan as we proceed toward a safety action plan for the Safe Roads and Streets for All program. In advance of the presentation of the agenda memo, and I have with me tonight Kristen Westcott, our Traffic and Transportation Unit Manager, and David Lowe, our Senior Traffic Engineer, to answer any questions. Would like to take you through a brief summary of where we've been thus far and where we're headed with the Safe Roads and Streets for All plan. Notice of the grant opportunity as part of the infrastructure bill was tendered 7/19/2022. The city applied for its grant, planning grant, on September 6th of 22, and received the grant agreement June 20th of this year, when we're proposing award tonight to a consultant to perform the safety action plan for us, January 24. Some of the benefits of the safety action plan, primarily aimed at reducing accidents and crash rates across the city, target crash problem areas, and identify populations that may be disproportionately impacted in fatal and serious injury crashes. This particular plan conducts a citywide crash and operational assessment and develops that safety action plan considering safe systems approach with goal setting associated with it. The budget for this study, $450,000. The SS4A grant provides $360,000 with a city's local match of $90,000. Traffic counts, we've awarded that now, and we're prepared to commence those traffic counts in support of the study work. Then the safety action plan and our safety task force, cross-departmental, thanks very much as well to communications, police, and fire for their support. So an interdepartmental city task force to support this effort. Some basic elements of the safe system approach to address and tackling the problem of reducing accidents and accident rates overall within the city. A safety analysis, leadership commitment, and thus you'll see and hear about safety action plan from time to time as we go through this, if you already have. Planning structure, equity considerations, policy and process changes, and then strategy and project selections. This is the planning grant only, I'd stress, with implementation grants would be next steps as we then pursue some tangible actions that we can take on top of the plan. Again, leadership engagement and goal setting, leadership engagement, vision zero, zero accidents, zero fatalities is a target, with potential goals to reduce roadway fatalities and serious injuries by at least 5% annually, ARC metric, reduce 66% of our roadway fatalities, and develop goals consistent with similar sized cities, similar demographics, similar conditions. Not only is it an interdepartmental cross-cutting team here on the city staff, but we're going to look to external stakeholders as well to help us on our way with the safety action plan as we ultimately pursue then implementation grants to further the cause here. Included, of course, are partners with GDOT, MARTA, Greta, ARC, the list goes on, as you can see here, to include some non-governmental organizations on the right-hand column there that may not typically be involved in some of our planning efforts here that we hope to involve. Next steps for this action, we hope to have a draft action plan end of August of this year. Action plan completion by November, end of November, with a plan adoption this time next year. With plans SS4A final report date of 6/1, and then from there we consider applying for implementation grants to go along with this now received planning implementation grant. So with that initial presentation, and before I go on to award recommendation tonight, do you have any further questions at this time?
All right, you've heard the report of the Director of Public Works. What's the desire of council? Mr. DiGiulio.
I move approval of action of item 2024-003, approval of a contract award to Gresham Smith for the development of the City of Sandy Springs Safety Action Plan.
Got a motion by Mr. DiGiulio. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Mr. DiGiulio, seconded by Mr. Baumann, that we approve agenda item 2024-003, contract award to Gresham Smith for development of the City of Sandy Springs Safety Action Plan. Any discussion? Dr. Kelly.
Thank you for the presentation. A couple of questions for me is, well, one is how will this differ from our Roswell Road access management and our North End safety analysis work? So this plan.
Kristen, if I could ask you to help a little bit of context, but this will provide us that overall comprehensive safety action plan and will serve as a baseline. Here you go, Kristen. Come on in.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Those particular studies were detailed into a specific geography, Roswell Road, looking at access management. The North End Safety Study and the Medical District Safety Study actually were generated by an initial review of staff a few years ago that looked at 2017 data, so we're going to go from 2017 to the current time. We're really going to enhance our traffic safety database, which we really don't have right now, so that we can compare year against year. But the big thing about this comprehensive plan is really taking a different approach to how we look at safety and recognizing that people make mistakes, for example, and looking at where we might be able to see certain trends and apply them more broadly and really target solutions for those areas to reduce, especially high injury and fatal crashes. And we are looking both at on-system and off-system. So crash-wise, we're looking at the entirety of all public roads in Sandy Springs, including the state system. And so we'll be collaborating with our Department of Transportation to talk about what's happening on 285 and 409. As you know, it's our city's public safety responders that actually get involved in all those crashes that happen on 285 and 400, even if we aren't actively doing the design, and construction of projects. It really is when you're trying to target a reduction in injuries and fatalities, that safety response and ability to get to crashes and working with the department to find locations where maybe there are hot spots that something's happening there, something's contributing to crashes there, that we all work together so we can minimize that.
Thank you. What year did we go up to for the Roswell Road management study, access management study?
What
year?
We just adopted that.
Data? I meant the data. Where do we pull data from?
Oh, it's the same data.
So 2017?
Well, it would have been the 5 years prior. So when we started that project, we had a full 5 years of data, and that's what we started with.
Okay.
For that
so
study.
With this work, do you think we'll get a sense as to whether any of our newer transportation interventions, some of these medians that we've done in the past couple years, if they're actually working? I think we'll get
that absolutely will show up because, for example, the median that was put in down near Grogan's Ferry and Pitts Road, that was a hot spot that had shown up on previous transportation evaluations. And so this gives us an opportunity. So one, you look at a longitudinal data, so year versus year. But the other thing is to look, sometimes if you might not see a trend if you only looked at 1 year data. So that's why it's really important to gather that broader data set. And it's over 26,000 crashes. That's, a significant number that happened in the city.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. Excuse me. The question's on agenda item 2024-003, approving a contract award to Gresham Smith for the development of the City of Sandy Springs Safety Action Plan. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2024-004, consideration to approve amendment number 1 to the intergovernmental agreement between the City of Sandy Springs as it relates to the Path 400 multi-use trail extension project and for the mayor to execute the amendment. This is for project T0060 and S2121. PI 00150023, presented by Public Works Director Marty Martin.
Mr. Martin.
Mayor and Council, this will be the first of 2 intergovernmental agreements with the City of Atlanta regarding this project tonight. This first one is for the preliminary engineering design phase of the particular project. In this case, we recommend the execution of amendment number 1 to the original IGA between the City of Sandy Springs and the City of Atlanta for the design of Path 400. In this case, the City of Sandy Springs entered an IGA with the City of Atlanta in May 2019 to share the preliminary engineering cost. We acted as the lead agent, local government, for the design of the current portion being considered for LET, from just above Lorden's up to our 285-400 project, where it ties into the side path recently constructed in that project. Amendment number 1 to the IG outlines additional cost sharing for the project with Atlanta for the Atlanta areas of Atlanta responsibility within their city limits, and adds with an estimate of not to exceed some $17,457.28 added to the total contract value or IGA value with the City of Atlanta. City of Atlanta total for the IGA, $87,286. Local match to be reimbursed by the City of Atlanta per this IGA at $17,457.28. With that, staff recommends approval of this Amendment 1 to the IGA, adding these additional dollars for reimbursement to the design contract from City of Atlanta.
You've heard the report of the Public Works Director. What's the desire of council? Ms. Rochelle.
I'll move that we approve Agenda Item 2024-004, and Amendment Number 1 to the intergovernmental agreement between the City of Sandy Springs as it relates to the Path 400 multi-use trail extension project.
Got a motion by Ms. Rochelle. Is there a second? Been moved by Ms. Rochelle, seconded by Mr. Giulio, that we approve Agenda Item 2024-004, an Amendment Number 1 to the intergovernmental agreement between City of Sandy Springs as it relates to the Path 400 multi-use trail extension project. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on Agenda Item 2024-004, approving the Amendment Number 1 to the intergovernmental agreement between the City of Sandy Springs related to the Path 400 multi-use extension project. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2024-005, consideration to approve an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Sandy Springs and the City of Atlanta for the construction of the Path 400 multi-use trail extension project for the mayor to execute the agreement. This is TO 060 as well as S2121 and PI 001503, presented by Public Works Director Marty Martin.
Mr. Martin.
Mayor and Council, whereas the PE, or the design IGA, covered the entirety of the project from Lorden's up to the perimeter center, construction has been split into two construction contracts, or two projects, one to be let by the City of Atlanta and one to be let by the City of Sandy Springs. One of the challenges with splitting those two projects, the two construction contract lets, was that not necessarily was that clean break for the projects available right at the city limit, such that one of the bridges to be constructed within the project, a relatively expensive bridge in this case, at some $1.9 million overall construction cost estimate, is contained within the City of Sandy Springs portion of the construction project. With this intergovernmental agreement with the City of Atlanta, the City of Atlanta agrees to pay for that local match required to construct that bridge and the construction elements within the City of Atlanta city limits as a part of the City of Sandy Springs executed project when we subsequently go to let, which should happen anytime within the next month or so as we get construction notice from GDOT to proceed with award. So with this agreement tonight, for the project total of some $1.965,147.50, the federal share being $1.5 million, the City of Atlanta would pay into this agreement some $393,029.50 as a part of this IGA tonight. With that, staff recommends approval of this IGA already approved by Mayor and Council of the City of Atlanta.
You've heard the report of the Public Works Director. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul,
Mr. Baumann.
I move approval agenda item 2024-005, I believe this one is, request for approval of the intergovernmental agreement between Sandy Springs and Atlanta for the Path 400 T0060-S2121.
Motion by Mr. Baumann. Is there a second? Moved by Mr. Baumann, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we approve agenda item 2024-005, an intergovernmental agreement between the City of Sandy Springs, City of Atlanta for construction of the Path 400 multi-use trail extension project. Any discussion? Ms. Rochelle.
I thought I read it wrong. Why is it so expensive, the bridge? Just curious.
There's a couple of relatively expensive bridges, and you recollect, did you have a chance to participate in the site visit we made with the not quite that bridge, if you recollect that bridge that we saw that day under construction, but these are not minimal. These are fairly significant bridges within this path system, as you've seen, Councilwoman. So,
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question's on agenda item 2024-005, an IGA between the City of Atlanta and the City of Sandy Springs for construction of the Path 400 multi-use trail extension. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2024-006, consideration to approve a memorandum of agreement between the Georgia Department of Transportation and the City of Sandy Springs for the innovative interchange scoping study of I-285 SR9, and that's PI number 00197992, presented by Public Works Director Marty Martin.
Mr. Martin.
Mayor and Council, this agreement tonight offers a city match, a contribution of some $150,000 of local funds to an overall agreement. Initial cost some $750,000, and that could increase up to $1.25 million. For GDOT to lead a study on the future alternatives for reconstruction of the Roswell Road at I-285 bridge. For many years, as a part of the Revive 285 studies, there was a standalone project to address specifically the Roswell Road at 285 intersection. With the actions that took place with both Transform 285, the intersection proper at 285-400, and then the managed lanes projects, both on 285 and 400, this major interchange project was lost in the shuffle for a while. Our planning staff recognized that a year or so ago and introduced to GDOT the concept of revising and reviving this project in the Transportation Improvement Program. GDOT agreed, and with that is going to serve as the champion to advance a study, a long-range scoping study for this project to pursue alternatives and improvements to the I-285 at Roswell Road interchange. This agreement tonight provides some $150,000 in city money to support that. GDOT expects currently in about 2 months, this spring yet, to award the contract to a consultant selected to begin this study, with the study duration, correct me if I'm wrong, Kristen, I believe it was about 2 years for overall study duration to establish a baseline cost for the project, and as well put a place marker in within all the other efforts still to go, top end 285, managed lanes, et cetera, as the project reestablishes itself. With that, staff recommends support of this $150,000 contribution to the project, forecasted and budgeted with this year's fiscal year budget.
You've heard the report of the Public Works Director. What's the desire of council?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Baumann.
I move adoption of agenda item 2024-006, request to approve memorandum of agreement between GDOT and Sandy Springs for the innovative interchange scoping study I-285 at Roswell Road.
Motion by Mr. Baumann. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Baumann, seconded by Ms. Mueller, that we approve agenda item 2024-006, a memorandum of agreement between the Georgia Department of Transportation, City of Sandy Springs for the innovative interchange scoping study. Any discussion?
Mayor Paul.
Mr. Baumann.
So, so Marty, we're 150 of this cost, and the other parties.
Yes, sir.
Some
GDOT in this particular case.
Okay. Is it safe to assume there's going to be a pretty robust opportunity for council specifically to weigh in, and then at some point the public through some PIOHs? You know, there's a lot that I'm sure people would want to weigh in.
Yeah, Kristen, what there always would be with a long-term scoping study, some fairly aggressive public outreach. We would expect some PIOH of some form as a part of this.
I mean, I guess,
you know,
the commitment of our 150, in the scheme of things, it's small, but big impact to our citizens in the southern part of the city. Just want to be sure that we are kept aware early on that we're not funding something down a path that will be really objectionable to us.
Right.
I kind of support this, but because I know that the improvements, I just want to make sure it's improvements
Right.
that we're getting.
And I think the other planning effort that we put some additional traction to tonight, this SS4A planning study, will as well highlight that particular interchange is one of the higher crash locations in the city and needs to be addressed structurally, if not.
There's also congestion. And the mayor has, I know, more than all of us, has been up on the bus rapid transit aspects of all of this. But
right.
I just, for the record, just want to make it known that I want to hear before things take place rather than sort of a report. I just want us to be ahead of the curve on this.
Yeah, Mr. Baumann, money's coming from the ARC, so it's likely federal money that everybody's spending. And the federal government has a rather robust requirement for public interaction for these kinds of studies. And we have to kind of remember we're the tail wagging the dog. This is going to be driven by GDOT more than us. So, but I'm sure staff will weigh in. And GDOT has to have these because it's going to be a federal requirement. So how much we get briefed in advance is going to be determined more by the Georgia Department of Transportation than these folks.
Yeah, but without a doubt, it's going to be our citizens that utilize this.
No question.
And our passers through. But
and I'm not arguing with your request. I'm just kind of pointing out that we're at the end of the food chain, not the front.
Yeah.
So
the track record on this project has been good thus far. Our staff, Kristen and her team, suggested that this particular project get renewed emphasis and get revitalized. GDOT staff supported that. They became the champion for it.
Yeah, and we've done a pretty good job of the city of anticipate. I can think of a lot of projects. We've sort of anticipated what might be coming down the pike, so to speak, and taking some measures. I can think of things that maybe were speculative or that actually happened, where we've done a good job, and I'm sure we'll do the same here. I'm not disagreeing, Rusty, at all.
All right. Ms. Mueller.
So, Marty, is there any kind of timeline associated with this? When we might expect something to start or happen?
Well, contract award within about the next 2 months for this long-term scoping study, and then about a 2-year duration on the study itself. So within that window is when you'd expect to see the open houses, public engagement, et cetera, associated with the project.
And then this will be added to the dashboard, the report, then we get the weekend review and everything.
To this end, since it has been a study, it hadn't yet received a geolocate, which easy enough. It's 285 at Roswell Road, so we can put a location for it. So.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on agenda item 2024-006, approval of a memorandum of agreement between Georgia Department of Transportation and City of Sandy Springs for the interchange scoping study of 285 and Roswell Road. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. The clerk will please read the next item.
Agenda item number 2024-007, consideration to accept a right-of-way entry agreement between the City of Sandy Springs Regency LLC, and the Georgia Power Company as it relates to the Johnson's Ferry Road, Mount Vernon Highway Improvements Project, and to authorize the mayor to execute the agreement presented by City Attorney Dan Lee.
Mr. Lee. There's been a malfunction. Somebody has shut down our mouthpiece.
Probably planned. This is a unique agreement in that it applies to the beginning of the road project, TS 191. You see on the screen above you, I'll tell you about these colors, and that'll better explain what I'm about to tell you. And staff's attempt to try and gain the right-of-way for the TS 191 project, the appraiser, the surveyor, the designer, they all work in concert to find the best route for the project. And this has been changed, I know of three different times in order to be less impactful on the 9.5-acre shopping center across the street that is owned by Regency properties. The design you see in front of you, go back to the other slide. If you look at it, the yellow is the permanent right-of-way, fee simple property needed for this project. The orange would have been a temporary construction easement that runs the whole length of from Roswell Road past the property on Johnson Ferry. The purple is the driveway easement, which is nothing more than showing how the project will improve the driveway as it accesses the new road. This is different in that in doing the due diligence for discussing the purchase from Regency, the city discovered that the property that is from the intersection at the corner of Roswell Road and Johnson Ferry going north on Roswell Road was actually part of a redevelopment plan that was submitted and approved by the city in about 2012 for Regency, meaning Regency should have already improved the sidewalk, Regency should have already dedicated the property to the city, and they have not done it. That's a problem in and of itself, but as it applies to this discussion tonight, it made it very difficult for the city to calculate the value of the property we needed outside of those deficiencies that were not granted to the city. And in the discussions with Regency, they've agreed to work toward calculating that. To make this even more complicated, this project requires that the overhead power lines be buried. The right-of-way through this intersection, as you can imagine, is full of everything that you can imagine, from fiber optics cable to water to a sewer line. So in order to underground it, the orange area, which would have normally been just a temporary construction easement, would be dedicated for a permanent utility easement to Georgia Power for the use of the duct system that will go underground. The parking places will be revived after the work is done, but that will survive as a permanent utility easement for Georgia Power. This right of entry is to get everybody on site, on the property, so we don't delay the project. It gives us 1 year to negotiate the settlement of how we pay, what we pay, and how we pay Georgia Power and or Regency for the property that will be needed on the Johnson Ferry side. And hopefully we can trade for the development redo of the property that fronts Regency up Roswell Road, and hopefully not convenience the public any more than by doing this all at one time. And this is, as you can imagine, a massive negotiation project, especially given that the Georgia Power is involved in it. Georgia Power signed off on it. If I get choked up, it'll be because of that, not because I have a cough. But hopefully we can. No,
that is an emotional moment.
Within a year, we can figure out the costing and the design of the improvement up Roswell Road for the frontage of Regency and one of the most popular shopping centers in the city. But what we'd ask you to do is authorize the mayor to sign this right of entry and give the parties the opportunity to construct the road and negotiate the settlement of these needed land transfers.
You've heard the report of the city attorney. What's the desire of council? Ms. Rochelle.
I move that we approve agenda item 2024-007, accept a right of entry agreement between the City of Sandy Springs and the Georgia Power Company as it relates to the Johnson Ferry Road, Mount Vernon Highway Improvements Project.
I have a motion by Ms. Rochelle. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Ms. Rochelle, seconded by Ms. Mueller. They would approve agenda item 2024-007, accepting a right of entry agreement between the City of Sandy Springs Regency LLC, and the Georgia Power Company related to the Johnson Ferry Road, Mount Vernon Highway Improvement Project. Any discussion? Ms. Rochelle.
So, Dan, you feel comfortable moving forward, not knowing how much it's going to cost? Or, like, you feel good about negotiating with them, that we're going to be able to come to a good agreement?
I think the city is in a very strong position, given the deficiencies along Roswell Road by the developer, number one. Number two, there's no alternative. The project has to go forward, and this is an intricate part of the project. So at the end of the day, the city doesn't have an alternative. At the end of the day, if we can't reach an agreement, what the city would do, and it's a good question, what the city would do, I would recommend to you that we use eminent domain and take the properties that we need. Then we would negotiate with Georgia Power for the utility uses for the area in the orange, and then the rest of the problem that Regency has in the development of the property going north on Roswell Road would be left to those devices to figure out what that would cost them in a timely manner to complete that which they're 12 years behind in doing.
Mr. Lee, isn't it true that the cost to Regency to cure their failure may exceed what we would have to pay?
Preliminary estimates, and it's very hard. Y'all have heard me cry before about appraisals and the subjectivity of them. And in this case, the construction cost, and when you're using construction of this area as currency for the purchase of the other area, makes it very difficult. But the staff who's worked very hard on this feels very comfortable that the synergies of the city doing the work on the Johnson Ferry side and using the work that the city would contract for on the Roswell Road portion would be much cheaper than what we would have to pay in a straight-out condemnation of the Johnson Ferry property. I feel comfortable in telling you that the cost of the Roswell Road project would be what we call a unit price contract. Somebody will bid on what the unit of construction would be, moving dirt, putting concrete, whatever those units are, and then the quantities would be calculated, and that's the price. And they would pay that, and subtracted from that would be the cost of the utility easement and the fee simple property needed on Johnson Ferry. So the indications are that the Roswell Road work would be at least twice what is owed on Johnson Ferry.
All right, you've heard the report of the city attorney, and are there any other questions? Hearing none, we'll call the question. The question is on agenda item 2024-007, accepting a right of entry agreement between the City of Sandy Springs Regency LLC, and the Georgia Power Company related to the Johnson Ferry Mount Vernon Highway Improvement Project. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The item is approved. Moving to reports, the Georgia General Assembly returns Monday. As the old saying goes, lock up the women, the children, and the old people. It's not safe. Having been an alumnus of that institution, pretty accurate. But we go into the 40-day period. We have our luncheon with our legislators this coming week to talk about the important things to us. The Georgia Municipal Association legislative staff will be here as well to kind of talk about some of the major issues facing cities, and so that's coming up this week, our hometown lunch. Tomorrow I've been honored and asked to tutor all the new mayors in the metro Atlanta area to help them, along with the mayor of Union City and mayor of College Park. We'll be holding a seminar for the newly elected mayors and hopefully not ruin them too badly. And then just as Mr. Baumann alluded, and as we talked about the Roswell Road 285 study, we're getting briefed again this week on the status of that transit, at least the mayors of the North Metro area getting briefed later this week on the I-85 transit status. So I'll be kind of keeping you aware of what's going on with that. We've been meeting quarterly to kind of review with MARTA and the other players in that process, preparing for ultimately a BRT system along the northern part of 285. So we've got an update coming on that, and I'll apprise you of what's going on there. That's all I've got. Does any other member of council? Ms. City Manager, I think you have an introduction to make.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This evening, Mayor and Council, I am pleased and excited to introduce to you our new Assistant City Manager, Mr. Chris Owens. He is sitting to the right of the City Attorney. Chris is joining us after being a consulting engineer in private practice for a number of years. Chris also previously served on the Alpharetta City Council and has a wonderful breadth of knowledge of all things related to infrastructure and facilities and engineering, and especially our area. So we're excited to have Chris joining us today. It's his official start day, and what better way to be welcomed to the fold than with a council meeting tonight?
Well, Mr. Owens, don't get too carried away. This one's a much shorter meeting than normal. I know you're used to longer council meetings in Alpharetta, and we don't go as long as Alpharetta normally, but this is a relatively short agenda tonight, first of the year. But welcome. We're glad you're here. Mr. Owens and I have known each other for a number of years. Used to work at Lowe Engineering when they were our partners helping start the city up. So, long track record, and I'm glad to welcome him on board. Any other staff reports?
One other personal detail, but I know council will be excited to hear it. Our other assistant city manager is out on maternity leave. Kristen had a baby girl on the 29th, Miss Eloise Betty, weighed 7 pounds 5 ounces and 20.5 inches long. So we're excited to have a new member of our family around here.
She's bigger than her mother.
Pretty close. Otherwise, things are going well. The ice rink has been a huge success, and we'll be getting you guys some numbers on our success with that and our New Year's Eve performance. Preliminary results look that we made a nice little profit from our symphony performance and our concessions sales that night. So good stuff.
That city bar was full.
Yes, it was.
All right. Is it still the case we don't need an executive session tonight? All right. Mr. DiGiulio, you're going to have to do the honors. Mr. DiGiulio moves adjournment. Is there a second? Been moved by Mr. DiGiulio, seconded by Ms. Rochelle, that we adjourn. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We are adjourned. Almost set a record. No, we finished at 6:30 one time.